to just share this point that I had started into, mostly because when we talked about how the Pharisees switched their verbiage from Abraham to father, what Jesus was pointing out, God was sharing with us about belief and it affects our fears and things like that, and us not necessarily telling the truth. Though we believe in the truth and though we are believers, sometimes what's in us is hard for us to get out to tell the truth to the Lord so that he can work in that truth and replace it. So we talked about that, which was amazing. But the point I had said for us to remember was when Jesus throws in there to the Pharisees about Satan being their father. So he's making the comparison between Abraham, God the Father, and Satan. And the reason I want to hit on this just real quickly is because of what he says about it being lies, all right? And a lot of times as believers, we can get to a point where we know that, okay, it's not necessarily Satan attacking us. And even the fears that you guys brought up wasn't necessarily resistance from the devil in our life anymore or anything like that. But what's going on in our mind, will, and emotions still can stem from and have the power of what he's saying to these guys about what Satan did. And so let me just read this again from John 8. It starts at 44. It says, "You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires." So they were trying to justify themselves that they weren't of the Father, but Jesus' whole point is you can't hear the truth. Why aren't you understanding what I'm saying to you? Because you can't bear to have the truth of what I'm saying in you. And here's his point. Your will is to do your father's desires, that the will of Satan. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. And why that's so important, the Lord showed me, was there was truth in him. So he was around the truth. Satan was one of the only angels that resided in the physical proximity closer than anyone in creation, other than probably Michael and Gabriel. You can find that in the Word of God. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. And the father of lies is what I want us to focus on. So he wasn't saying that they desired to be after Satan. He was saying they were operating under his system. What system? The system that he tried to change, that God had put in him, that was the opposite. God had told Satan at the time, Lucifer, he had told him who he was. He had showed him who he was in creation. He had let him come close. He had responsibility. He shifted, and in his own, whatever the way the angels work in creation, had created a system of lies that he would what? Rise to the throne, be above God, be able to be above creation. So that system of lies, he started that. Not that he created it, but he's the father of it. And so in that process of us understanding, his literal character changed. So that the point was there was literally no truth in him anymore. That same truth that is God, the Word made flesh, and was cast out. So being the father of lies, when we're stuck in a system of lies, whether in the world, Satan, or just ourselves with our own fear, we're operating under that system. That's why there's a stronghold. That's why it's so important that we say the truth. You might have caught this last night already, but I want to say it from these verses. There's no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies, or the father of the system of lying. But because I tell you the truth and you do not, this is what we stayed on last night, believe me. This is what we did so well as we concluded last night. The belief part is what we got to. Because you do not believe me, right? So in John 1, when he says the belief part is how we're able to receive and believe and become children of God. So when he says abide in my word, to stay in my word, and then you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free, that's what sits in our heart. So why is that important? Because he says to Satan, there is no truth in him. Why? He stopped believing what God had created him to be. He started the system of, I believe I can be something other than what God created me to be in this, and so much so that I can be above God. So he started the system of that lying with whatever the ability God gave him. He twisted it, perverted it into lies. And now what he's saying to the Pharisees, Jesus is saying is, you're following that system of the father of lies. And so the truth isn't sitting in you because you won't abide in one thing, believing in me. And so what I wanted to say to you guys last night was that those verses are so important because the word father of lies. And it hit me a few months ago. Wow, where did it come from? Him. And so when Satan came to Adam and Eve, it seems so obvious, but we don't hear people teach about this. When he came to Adam and Eve and said, did God really say that? And he twisted what? The truth. He's the father of lies. We see it from there, but really it started up in heaven when he fell. And so if we're believing lies of what we're afraid of, and we won't tell the truth, which is what these guys should have said, Jesus, it's really hard to believe that you're the Messiah, but if we believe, will you set us free? They didn't even say that. They don't step into that. They don't allow themselves to. And so they're staying in the system of, we will stay above what you're telling these people. We'll stay above your words of truth. And that's the system of Satan. We can do that every day in our life when we don't confess our fears of what we're actually feeling and wanting and desiring to Jesus, and letting him, as we abide in him and believe he's the answer to those things, to set us free and replace it with truth. Hope that helps you guys. John 8. Let that sit in your heart. That will encourage this week. I'll see you next week.